Alrighty, good morning everybody. Almost lunchtime. So I'm glad to be here today in Chicago, the last day of the conference, and I'd like to bring up our speakers. Come on up. Yep, so we have Graham from Grass House Brands. We have Mike here from Sweet and Leaf Trade, and we have Pete from the Blink Group, and we have Veeb from Can Menus. So we got to chat up a bunch in backstage about the future of the cannabis industry, and especially too how I feel about AI, all these different softwares that are really not only just the cannabis industry, but every industry is trying to implement these tools to make better success for their businesses, or even too driving down the number of employees to being able to do research of how product sells. So I'm glad here to go ahead, and I want to start with Graham a little bit, especially that you're on the growth side and where it matters the most of what's the future of my business, how am I going to sell. So I'd like to start with you and what you're implementing on these AI tools.
Sure. So thank you very much for having us. Thank you everybody for coming. I'm actually a tech guy by training and a cannabis lover by passion. I started in seventh grade fixing people's computers, helping them set up their America Online accounts, if you remember those. Then I was at a company called software.com, which was the back-end email servers that most people with email addresses in 1995 used for their email for all the ISPs and telephone companies, and then was part of the founding team of Sonos, the home audio system. In the background of all that, I was also growing weed in my closet, and part of the reason I did it was because I really liked the technology. I love the plant, I love the product, and I like to use the technology to make it happen. So from the very beginning, we've been very focused on technology at Glass House. The way that we look at it is we're trying to grow the most best weed for the least amount of money, and the way that you reduce the cost to provide better value without sacrificing quality oftentimes is technology. I think from a philosophical point of view, we always try and understand what we're doing before we apply technology, and so we don't want to go too fast. You don't want to automate too quick. You want to make sure you know what you're doing, and then you want to bring the technology to it. So for us, we're really in a game of saving seconds without sacrificing quality. So one of the examples and things that we've done recently is that we've implemented RFID tracking for all of our labor activities. So a good example is it used to be that employees would check in at the time clock, then dilly-dally, and then end up at their station to trim. We hand trim almost all of our cannabis, so it'd take them a while to get there. Now we have RFID tags at their station with their tools, and so the check-in starts when they actually get to their workstation and get to work. And then when they finish working, they scan out, and we're scanning all the product around so that we can get to the point where to the employee, by the minute, we can tell how much they're trimming, how many pounds per hour they're working on, so we can figure out who's good, who should be rewarded, who's in the wrong position, what strains they are, how do you implement the COGS on a strain by strain basis, and a lot of that comes from the data tracking. So that's one of the big things we've done. Another example is that we just recently implemented photo-optical sorters using machine learning and AI. So now rather than having people sort things by hand, we're doing what they do, frankly, in big ag across other industries, and using machine learning with AI and cameras to photograph things and then sort it based on criteria. There's a machine that, it's a $250,000 machine, but it allowed us to eliminate about 6 full-time positions and do it with better accuracy and reporting, which saves us a ton of time and money and reduces our cost.
Yeah, no, that's great. I see with many of my clients as I get to travel the country that not only implementing software tools, but investing in different machineries that can make more efficiencies. They're, well, hey, that $250,000 to spend up front, that's maybe not doable at a time like this, but at the end of the day, as you think about the future, and if you're able to come up with that and being able to decrease the amount of positions of employees that you have, that's going to really be a long-term savings in the future. And that's certain things that I've implemented in my company as well with supply chain and being able to produce millions of pop tops every month. And it's one of those things where, hey, this is the future. We're in the third industrial revolution. And Pete, I wanted to go to you now and talk a little bit about, so what are you doing, especially that you're a nationwide vape hardware company? What are you doing to analyze different trends in different markets? So for instance, I come from Nevada where, hey, the max disposable size is a 0.9, and there's other markets where you sell 2 mLs. So I kind of wanted to see how are you able to navigate with supply chain and with these different tools to really be able to help your customers and making sure that they're buying a successful product that is going to move and keep getting reorders.
A lot of, pardon me, a lot of work goes into that, right? We're constantly monitoring what's happening across the country with trends, right? We use some data analysis there. We're starting to automate it, but more to Graham's point, we're trying to figure out at the moment how to do it manually, really understand what we're doing before we just throw technology at it, right? With some of our programs that we've implemented, like Blink on Demand, where we're bringing in vape hardware on demand for our customers, and they can draw from our warehouses, pay as they go, if you will. We're now starting to automate that because we've understood that process really well, and we're working with some of the companies that are on the stage here. We want to work with them, and a few others that are not on the stage here to start kind of compiling all this data that's out there. There's a lot of companies up there out in this space that are throwing off a whole lot of data on what's happening with inventory, what are the sell-through rates, what's actually moving and what's not. We want to start collecting that and making it actionable. And where AI comes in for us is being able to compress those large data sets and provide a decision, right? We want to make it where it's actionable. Yeah. We're doing that manually right now for our customers, where our customer success team will actually pull data across the country, see what's going on in the industry, what are the trends. We'll pull data from Headset or others out there and start feeding that back to our customers and telling them, hey, this is what's moving. We recommend you inventory this, right? The next stage for us is to start implementing some of these newer technologies to present a buy decision, right? Mm-hmm. Basically have a platform where customers can just go in, pick what they need, and exit, right? Make it easy.
Yeah, I know exactly. Especially we saw last week where we had this strike on 37 East Coast ports where, hey, who knows when this is going to end? But of course, I had a good feeling it was going to end quite quickly. But these are different things where if you have to be in control of dealing with getting resources out of a different country and having to bring them in, and hey, you want to talk with people and let them know what you're doing, because this type of information helps companies like Pete's company and my company to know exactly what we need to do. Because if you can't sell your product, if you don't have packaging, if you don't have hardware, what's going to happen is you can't make any sales. So it's really important that this data comes from, and how much of a community the cannabis industry is, to be able to network of all this different data and how it relates, because these AI tools, they have to learn from our own actions. They have to learn how we input things. And so, Viv, I wanted to go to you now and just, especially too at the retail side of heavily what your softwares are, you report to people like Graham, then report to people like myself and Pete, of, hey, what are we doing and how can we better serve the industry and keep getting sales and being consistent? So I want to go to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never been a better time to be in the data space, right? AI has made things, has accelerated what you can do with data. It's made the, amount of data that is actually, actionable, much more, a lot easier to actually do, right? And I think, 4 years ago in the cannabis space, it was very, cloudy. There wasn't a lot of clarity in terms of what's going on with data. Just even originating the data was a big challenge. And so I think things have kind of converged at a perfect time with AI and all of the new data sources that are available for cannabis today. And we found very early on that having access to a wide array of data is awesome, but what can you do with it, right? And it's, when you're working with retail and the brands that sell into retail, it's two sides of the same coin, right? So how can we, enable this technology to allow retailers and brands to, make their jobs easier by working together and more collaboratively around the data, right?
Yeah, no,
I think, sorry to jump in here, but I think there's a lot of like pieces of information out there, right? Everybody's got their own kind of platform that they're working on, and I'd love to be able to see somebody pull together all this data and present it in a way, because like everybody's got these pieces, right? I only serve these 5 markets, I only serve these 10 markets, and then so that leads to all these holes where there's not the visibility there to really know what's going on.
We're working on it.
Sorry, it's a browser tab overload, right? You don't want to have the 5 different browser tabs when you can have everything in one spot.
Yeah.
So.
I also think one thing that's important, being a tech person who is constantly implementing new technologies in companies and processes, is you really have to buy into a tech-forward culture. So people are going to be scared of tech. Is this replacing us? Is the AI buying tool going to replace wholesale because now they're not going to need to talk to anyone? And then they're going to push back against it. And it's really important for us to understand that technology should make things faster. They should make things easy and more efficient, which should lead to selling the right product to the right consumer at the right price, which means you're going to sell more and the wheel goes faster. And I think a lot of times we forget that there's still people behind absorbing the data, pushing the buttons, and if they don't understand where they fall in the chain or why this is important, you're kind of dead on arrival. And then what happens is you get another piece to try to replace something that might not work, and you start band-aiding and band-aiding. So I think, I've gone into companies, put on a whiteboard, draw, 6 boxes and be like, here's, our problems, here's the tech we're going to use to move the data faster or back, here's what we're going to get, but really understanding how that drives revenue or efficiency. And I think things become a lot easier.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely great. And kind of another thing that's brand new that's really no one is talking about that I'm starting to do so much research in is this RFID within labels, and then also too with NPC RFIDs, where, if anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's like, when you tap and pay for, Apple Pay or the Samsung Pay, and being able to actually put that in the final packaging. What's going to be very interesting to do that from a whole top to down level is you'll see where a consumer, where they purchased the goods, but then where they took that package. So it's like, hey, if they bought the bag in Chicago of cannabis, but then they took it up to Wisconsin, well, hey, maybe, for certain brands, they'll be like, well, I need to sell to a dispensary closer to Wisconsin because I see my packaging traveling up the coast or traveling into a different part of the state. So it's going to really enable us to have these different things implemented that maybe 10 years ago just seemed so inefficient or not even the right price, where it's like, forget about it. We're running things on Excel, on spreadsheets, we're doing okay. But at this point now, where this technology has now become a veteran in many industries and now bring it into cannabis, it's going to really change the game of how we sell products.
Yeah, I say, one example of that, we're vertically integrated, so cultivation's kind of our cornerstone, but we also have some of the top brands in California, and we have 10 retail stores, and one of the things we're trialing right now is a technology. It's actually in concert with Metric, which is the track and trace system in California, where it allows us at retail to scan products in on a case pack level, which doesn't sound like anything particularly complicated, but as the manufacturer of the products, as well as understanding what it means on retail, when it's a 90% reduction in labor. If when you're putting it into your POS, you can scan a tag on a case rather than having to scan into each individual item. Again, not mind-blowing. I'm sure they do it in every other supermarket and CPG, but for cannabis, it's just such a nascent industry that there's so much low-hanging fruit that technology can enable to go from something that takes 20 minutes to something that takes 2 minutes. That's how you scrub cost out of thing without having any negative impact on the customer experience.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely great. And Mike, we started talking about it backstage with Graham, but can you expand on what we were talking about how being able to implement these AI tools into the bulk side and the wholesale side? Because I think that's going to intrigue a lot of, where many industries are in that phase still, and probably it's going to take them a lot longer to get to the CPG side of the market. So I liked your ideas. Can you talk about those? They were great.
Yeah, what's really interesting is, especially in this industry, is we're all kind of buying and selling from each other as well as buying and selling to ourselves. So getting the data and understanding who needs what, where, it's actually really easy because we're not that big. We don't have, there's a closed loop system. We all have Metric, we manifest. And so understanding and looking at kind of the data set and what people need and what they've made in the past. And a lot of times people are out of inventory because they couldn't get, the bulk supply. And a lot of times people maybe have the wrong bulk and they could switch their growing patterns based on what's been sold before. But a lot of times people sell bulk because they couldn't sell the other stuff, right? Where in fact you could do the other way around. If you knew 50% of your flower was gone before it was even grown, then you could be real specific about your products and your high margin stuff. So I think other industries do it. I think we will start doing it. I think you just have to be a little bit in the mindset that, sitting here and doing the same thing over and over and watching the line go down a little bit is a little crazy. And everyone has similar problems. Everyone is trying to kind of move the wheel around with the same, essentially type of product without understanding the consumer demand on like a daily, weekly, even hourly cadence. And, part of that is just the infancy in the industry. And, part of it is the walls have to start coming down a little bit on, some new processes.
Yeah, I think, we're a nascent industry, so there's a lot of things that are missing that are customary in other places. There's no Kelly Blue Book, for example, of cannabis, right? The markets are fairly opaque, but we also have some places where in some perverse ways, the regulations are actually provide us with a real treasure trove of data, right? So at retail, for example, you walk in, you hand them your ID, right? They didn't just check it, they scanned it. And so can you imagine if a Safeway or CVS, that it's a wet dream for them to say, I know the age, I know the gender, I know the address, I can tell you the zip code, I can correlate this buying pattern, I could correlate it if you have multiple stores or cross stores, what does this person buy, where do they buy it, how frequently they buy it, what does this demographic do? So there's also a tremendous amount of opportunity. It's part of the reason that we're in retail is we see it as a strategic tool for product development, right? It's less about, we're more interested in being the Casamigos of cannabis than the CVS that sells it, but retail is where you get to connect with the consumer and grab all that amazing data and analytics and demographic information and then feed that back in for product development to identify holes and know what customer you're serving with precision that is basically only dreamed of in other industries.
Yeah, and the thing with cannabis data that is obviously makes it really, really fun is that it's incredibly dynamic, right? Like how many other retail sectors do you have where, strain and product names are always changing, where there's, not a ton of consistency even within, your own brand's kind of product selection in retail. So it makes it a lot of fun.
And there's 12 companies collecting the data.
Right.
So now we got to piece it all together.
Exactly, piecing it all together, and that's where AI definitely comes into play, and that's what's really exciting. Some of the automations that you can enable using AI, just like we've been talking about on stage. You start manual, you figure out what works, and then you automate at least a portion of that process, and that's how you stay ahead. I know we really believe that data is the way to gain an edge in the industry, and it's really cool to see operators now adapting data-driven strategies earlier and earlier on, right? If you start off operating, with a data-driven mindset, it's going to be much, much more, easy to sustain that than trying to introduce it later on. So never too early to start with the data either.
And we've taken some of these programs that we've implemented for our customers and cut the supply chain lead times down from like 8 weeks to like 10 days or less, right? Mm-hmm. But it's all about being on top of it. Right? You've got to make sure you have the right inventory at the right time. How do we do that is to be in constant contact with our customers. And now that's where again the data piece of it comes in, where we can make it automated and our customers can make just a decision, right? We present them with a buy decision or a hold off decision, and then it becomes really powerful and actionable where we've got the supply chain figured out, we have the product sitting here, we're just making our customers that much smarter, right? That much more intelligent. That's what we want to do with this. That's kind of where we're headed. We're doing it already manually, where we've taken all the supply chain time out. Our customers are now waiting 10 days to get their product as opposed to 8 weeks, right?
I think that's so important. It's making the decision easier using data, right? A lot of times you can get into a data dashboard and it's more you leave more confused than when you came into it.
I know,
right?
I do.
Absolutely.
All the colors and all the graphs, like I'm done.
Yeah, no, especially when it comes to whether purchasing, whether it's packaging, whether it's purchasing on the retail side, and having all this information and being able to make educated decisions instead of where kind of in the mindset, I like these people. It eliminates that of having to deal with a purchasing manager when you're an owner of a company making decisions based off of their own biases and being able to run directly with data and what they have to do. Because if they deviate from that, then that's a telltale sign to owners and upper management that, hey, this is not going to be okay. You purposely are buying the wrong product to benefit whether it's your friends or a colleague or just because you personally like the product. This takes away all of those personal perceptions in business and actually drives it with data, with all this information from the consumers themselves. They don't need to talk to them. We don't need to have one-on-one conversations with consumers. We just go ahead and pull it from here, and instead of just being able to, how many people can you talk to a day? 1 hour, 10-minute conversations, you can't get through many. There's so many things to do in a day where, hey, you can collect thousands of individuals' data in a day. So I'm really excited about the future of the industry and all that, and I don't know, I'm about to have some closing remarks, but I think we did a good job covering this, and I'm all set. I don't know if everybody, you guys have something else to say, but I think I'm really excited what everyone is doing here on this panel.
I think, to Graham's earlier point and to your point as well earlier, other industries are doing this already, right? It's about how do we make it work for our space, which to your point is just such a dynamic space, right? Things keep changing. People come up with something, a new formulation, and now we got to track that, right? So it's all about like coming together, really truly coming together, making these things actionable. That's kind of where I would like to take it. We've already got, like I said, the supply chain side of it covered. We're looking for that, for those partners now that can help us get to this next level, right?
I was just going to say, everything from AI bud tenders to recommended wholesale orders to sharing data and supply chain information with partners, all of it comes together. All it does is make sure that the right product is in the right store for the consumer at the right price, which really, really, really will lead to more sales. So everyone wins, and it's really hard to connect it, but everyone has value in the chain. So it's like we all have to kind of do our piece in it, even if it means sharing, retail data with a partner who you might also be competing with, right? Because you guys both sell each other's products, right? Instead of sniffing each other's tails and playing games, you guys can both impact each other's bottom line.
I think, for the past, let's say, 10 years, as the industry's been, really ramping up, there's been this kind of feeling of, other sectors are doing it this way, and they've been doing it this way for a long time, and, I wish cannabis had these tools, right? It's cool to see that, things have kind of evened out for the industry, and there's a lot more of those tools available now. But I think now we actually have a real opportunity to set an example for other retail sectors and have cannabis really be on the bleeding edge of some of the things that we're doing. And, with the dynamic nature of the market, highly competitive nature of the market, I really think that, some of the tech that's being developed within cannabis can really, will end up influencing other industries, just like right now we're craving things that are common in other industries.
Yeah, I think, it's fundamentally, cannabis makes the world a better place. I think that's why a lot of us are here, and so being able to deliver that at the best value, which is the consumer view of what efficiency means, is incumbent on all of us. It's cannabis, so all of us had to start a mile before the starting line that everybody else is. But if you're not gritty and if you don't love it and you're not passionate, you'd be gone from the industry long ago. So what we do, and what we've I think done well as an industry and need to continue to do here, is we need to be better at other things just to make up for the friction that we have to endure with taxes and regulation and stigma and all the things that we all know too well. We have to make up for that just to get back to parity. But eventually those things are going to go away, and the hard work we do and the mountains that we climb by putting these processes and efficiencies into place, eventually those chains are going to come off. And I think, to your point, it's going to be a really awesome opportunity for us to deliver that much better value to that many more customers and really make the cannabis industry a beacon and shining light that others start to follow, rather than us being the ones that are following them. And I think those days get closer every day.
I think the line I like to use is, despite all the challenges, right, and all the roadblocks, we're here, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and we're becoming successful at it, right, despite everything else.
Well, and remember, most good technology or processes are developed to fix a problem or a roadblock. And so because there's a million of them in cannabis, everyone's had to adapt probably earlier in the industry than we might have thought through technology, because that's the only way to do it. So it's like all of those issues will pay off because we'll be a better supply chain in the long term.
Yeah, it's technology. I think is one of the places where we are, which it's agnostic to cannabis. It doesn't give you a higher interest rate. The computer, the AI, the machine, the tools you have. It's one place where it will deliver to you exactly what it would deliver to every other industry. And so for us, it's a place where we can truly exceed. And I don't know the saying, what's a crisis ruins bad companies. Good companies survive them, and great companies are improved by them. And we live through the crisis of cannabis every day, which gives us the opportunity to put these things in place. And eventually, when the wind does shift around a bit, it'll have us running really fast down the road, which will be exciting.
Gaining some objectivity is definitely huge, right? As business owners, you tend to look at data and look for things that support what you're trying to do, right? And so with AI, I think some of the insights that we're getting, helping us stay objective, I think it's huge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. From just, getting to meet everybody today and learning all their different perspectives of the industry and bringing in this, all these great softwares and tools. And the future that I definitely see is where we talked about a lot is it's all going to be able to integrate and talk to each other. Sometimes there are those roadblocks where, hey, this one program may not communicate with another. But it's kind of one of those things where even tech companies, as hey, they're starting to produce these type of tools for companies for all of us to take advantage of, they're starting to realize, well, hey, we need to be able to work and connect with many different platforms to be able to have our services everywhere, and being able to, that's how consumers and how they're going to keep getting customers like us to keep investing in these tools for our companies. So I had a really good time with you guys. It was so good to meet you all, and I think we did a good job, and hopefully we taught some people some things and enlighten them of what they didn't know. But thank you so much.
Just for the record, we're finishing 4 minutes early, which makes sense because we're all tech people, and so we drive
It's
efficiencies.
the Moore's Law of conferences.
And now you guys have 4 minutes to check on emails, which you can take us for.
Twice as fast, half the price.
Tech
You'll
and
get to
supply
lunch
chain
sooner.
guys, we know how to get it done.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.